Welcome to my slideshow. Over the next half hour, you will see me renovate a Steinway Model C grand piano, which was made in Hamburg in Germany in the year 1900. The instrument was modernised in the early 1960s, as was the fashion. In latter years, the piano has fallen into disrepair and unsafe on its legs. Here is the piano as it arrived in the workshop. The original legs would have been round with carvings on them. These were the new legs put on in the early 1960s, as I say, was the fashion. The original pedals would have been shaped like a Greek lyre. Here's the piano put on its legs, a little wobbly. Here is the action and keys removed. This will be put to one side and be attended to later. Here are the dampers. This is the damper mechanism inside the piano. Here am I removing the dampers. The dampers all out and in order and numbered. This is the bottom part of the mechanism removed from the piano along with the bushing bar. Brown paper is placed over the bass strings and rubbed through with sandpaper onto the bridge pins. This holds it in position while I use a crayon to make a pattern for the making of the new set of bass strings. The pattern all ready for the string maker. This is the desk runners removed from the instrument. The whole of the tension is relieved on the piano by turning the rest pins, relieving several tons of inward pressure. Here I am, smiling little piano man. Now we're removing these steel strings. All strings removed. It's now time to turn out all the rest pins, the tuning pins you see. What a mess. Turning the rest pins out. After 3 hours, the job is finished. It's now time to remove all the screws and bolts holding the iron frame into the instrument. This is the number of the piano, 95452. All the nuts and bolts are put in order through a piece of cardboard. This is removing the A-grafts, more commonly known in the trade as studs. These must be kept in order. Here are parts of the bridge from the top two sections of the treble end. The frame now is ready to be removed. We're going to put the piano on its side and take out the frame sideways. It's too heavy to lift vertically. The iron frame is quite vulnerable, as if we dropped it, with it being so brittle it could easily break, safely propped against the wall. Now the piano, being much lighter, can be turned upside down on the floor. It's easier to attend to the pedal mechanism and the renovation of the underneath of the piano in this position, rather than climbing underneath on all fours. The legs have now got to be refitted to make the piano much safer. The piano all washed and cleaned. Timbers painted and a good coat of varnish underneath the soundboard. The pedals are now refitted. New turnbuckles that hold the legs on are made out of oak. Stripping the case, revealing the most unusual, beautiful wood. A little bit of inlay. The fall of the piano, that's the lid that goes over the keys. Now it's the soundboard. The soundboard had several splits in it which have to be repaired. An old screwdriver is ground to the right shape, which is V-shaped, which I'm now routing out the split in the soundboard. A V-shaped piece of wood is fitted and then glued and knocked in with a hammer. Excess glue is removed. "24 hours later, the glue has hardened and the excess is shaved off with a sharp chisel. Now it is time to scrape all the old varnish off the rest of the soundboard. Now it's a good few hours sandpapering. The soundboard ready for varnishing. First of all, the bridges. Now with a larger brush, the first coat goes on. The first coat complete. Another 5 coats to go. The finished soundboard. Now, with a small piece of felt, I put graphite onto the tops of the bridges. This helps the strings slide smoothly. Here am I burnishing the graphite. The soundboard, bridges and inner rim all finished and now left to mature. Now it's time for attention to the iron frame. The hitch pins are cleaned and masked up. This is the frame having its first undercoat. The screws must also be gilded. the finished iron frame. I couldn't take pictures of me spraying the frame, as holding a spray gun and a camera at the same time was not possible. Replacing part of the bridge mechanism. Replacing the A-graphs or studs. The iron frame back in the piano with all the nuts and bolts and screws back in their original holes. This is torquing down the iron frame. These numbers correspond to the gauge of string that will be used for stringing the piano. I'm cutting felt, which is used for putting underneath the strings, called bearing felt. By the way, the little knife there was 6 inches longer almost 50 years ago when I first got it. Here we go with the first string, gauge 21. It goes round the hitch pin, back over the bridge. And now winding the wire around the rest pin. Using a hammer and a punch. The rest pin is driven into the rest plank. I use chalk to rub up and down the fine thread. This gives a smooth feel when tuning the piano. The rest pin banged down with a hammer into the rest plank. The middle section is all now completed, and now it's time for the treble section. I am now punching felt out with a round punch, and these little punchings of felt are for the extreme treble. The steel strings almost completed. A coil lifter is used to bring the winding of the wire around the rest pin close to each other. This helps stability in tuning. I'm now cutting felt, which will be woven between the bridge and the hitch pins. This is a piece of felt ready for the bass strings to be replaced. This is the, which I mentioned earlier, the little bit of felt strip that's woven between the strings between the bridge and the hitch pins. If this isn't done, overtones would spoil the sound of the piano. Here's the set of new bass strings being made by the string maker. Starting at the bottom. Now it's the same felt is woven between the bridge and the hitch pins on the bass section to stop the overtones. I don't smile like that very often. These are the tools I use for stringing the piano. Now it's time to repair the lid. As you can see, there are two splits. There are actually more. The splits are glued and cramped. It's now time to keep on stripping the black French polish that was put on in the 1960s. Here's the hinges for the top being removed, and the underneath the top coated up with stripper. It comes off quite easily, revealing the most unusual wood underneath. Here are more parts of the piano being stripped. These are the new legs that were put on in the 1960s. As with the modern square pedal columns. Here's the case, all now stripped. The half top came apart. It had been repaired before. As you can see on the end of the piano, there were originally pieces of wood. These would have had inlaid lutes and flutes and other musical instruments. I'm now having to fake it up. Faking is where I'm using solid color, basically powder paint, to emulate the wood. And then I'm hand French polishing a finish over it. The desk, which I have now got to fake up. Here's the fall that covers the keys being stripped. Here's the half top all repaired, now being stripped. This is the fall revealing the inlaid Steinway and Sons name. More faking on the bass end. Also, the legs have to be faked up, as they're just solid beech with no grain at all. This is part of the mouldings that I've had to remake. A slow process, hand finishing with the old French polish techniques. Now it's time for the action and keys. This is what remains of the original ivories. The original hammers. These are the set-off adjustment buttons. This is the key frame with all the keys removed. These are the pins that are in the center of the key on the fulcrum. These are the pins at the front of the key, known as back pins. You can turn them to adjust any play in the front of the key. This is the back touch. This is the signature of the man that made the keyframe. I'm now removing all the old pins and felts from the keyframe. The keyframe with all the pins and felts removed, ready to be cleaned. Replacing the back pins at the front of the keyframe. This is where the fronts of the keys, the pins go up inside at the front of the keys. This is the checks. The check stops the hammer after it struck the string from bouncing about. Check. This is a steam box made out of an old biscuit tin with a slit put in the top. As the water boils, steam comes out of the slit and melts the original glue that holds the felt bushing in place. This is easily removed as the steam softens the old-fashioned glue. Modern pianos put together with synthetic glues, I doubt if one will be able to do this in the future. Here's the same process with the front bushings being removed and the checks. Now it's time to remove all the old ivories. The fronts, the original fronts of the were not ivory but bone. Here's the start of rebushing the keys. A length of felt, the right thickness, cut to the right width, pulled through the key bushing, a little animal glue, old-fashioned glue, put on the felt, pulled through, and then clamped with a spring clamp. This is the front bushing. A little piece of wood is pushed down to the right length and then cut with a sharp knife. This does both sides of the bushing at once. All the keys and all the bushings are finished. It's now time to recover the checks. Felt is cut, and this is leather that is cut for the check. If you notice the line on the bottom of the leather, this tells me which end to stick on first, telling me the nap of the leather. This is essential. The nap of the leather catches the hammer from springing back. The glory of old-fashioned glue is you put it together and it sticks immediately. Now it's time to put on the new plastic key fronts. little, it's a special modern glue, this, of plastic. It's painted on with a brush. And hey presto, a new key. The key's completed. The original ebony sharps and flats are cleaned and polished and the sides blacked. Here we are, they're all finished. And now the keys are put together and clamped with 2 old keys from a scrap piano, and sandpaper cleans the woodwork. Now this is the action frame, all cleaned, all the set-off buttons are cleaned. More steaming off felt. This is to be repeated 88 times. This is punching out a centre pin, a fulcrum. They get a little bit loose over time and they have to be punched out, reamed out with a brooch. Here we are. And the next size pin put in. When it's done, it has to be not too tight or the note will stick, too loose and the note will rattle. Cleaning out the grooves where the repetition springs go into the action. Replacing the repetition springs. This is multiplied 88 times. Replacing the action parts on the action rails. This is underneath where we're replacing the felts I steamed off earlier. I am now cutting on the guillotine the hammer rest felt. These are now individually glued to each part of the mechanism. This is the new set of hammer shanks, rollers and flangers. These are the set of new hammers. These come from the Renner company in Germany, who make the original parts for Steinway and Sons. Screwing the new hammer shanks onto the action. I'm now cutting a little masking tape. This is put under the flange if the when rising the hammer shank, if it goes off to one side, a little bit of tape put under the flange will correct its travel. I'm now putting the hammers in the vise. It's necessary to, even though they're new, to pull them over with 1000 grade paper. I'm now marking the center of the hammer. This is essential for lining the hammer up. The strike line, which is where the hammer hits the string, is essential to get right, to bring out the best tone. I've used the original guides and now fitting the rest of the hammers. The action and keys all finished, ready for regulating. The term regulating is the term used for adjusting all the adjustments on each note, which are around 14 to each note. Here we are with the dampers, removing the damper felts. These are not original. These were put on when the piano was done in the 1960s. The original colour was not red. You can see a little bit of maroony felt on the end of the damper. That's the original felt. That's all the old felts removed. This is the damper guide rail. Each bush is steamed and removed. A piece of felt, the right thickness and right width, is cut, and as you can see, there's a point. The point is pushed through the hole. Pulled through, a little glue put on the end, and it's then cut off. All the bushes replaced, and now it's time for a little sandpaper to clean the whole thing up. The finished guide rails. These are now fitted into the piano. The same principle is put to the pedal mechanism for the bushings. Here's the pedals being refelted. And now we're starting to assemble the case. Unfortunately, doing all this work on my own, I couldn't take photographs of me French polishing the casework in the traditional old way with a French polished rubber. The piano is now coming together. All the original wood and my faked wood. At last, 3 months' work, nearly finished. I also couldn't take any photographs of me replacing the dampers or regulating or me tuning the instrument. And then there was the voicing, pricking the hammers with needles, bringing out the best potential of any instrument. Never having piano lessons, over the years I have taught myself to play in my own way. The background piano music you can hear is myself improvising. Here we are now, the piano has been put into the hall, ready for its first concert. hope you've enjoyed watching the process of me renovating this lovely old Steinway. And I'm off to tune another piano now. Goodbye.